Hey guys, tonight we begin with the gentle storytelling and ambient sounds that probably don't think about nearly. The wind doesn't ask where you're from. It just moves slowly, like it has nowhere to be and no one to impress. You're standing at the edge of something very old now, stone under your feet, older than the language you're thinking in. The sky is the color of wet parchment, soft and unsure, the way mornings often are when they're still deciding what kind of day they want to be. There's a low hum in the air. Not machines, not traffic, just life, quietly ticking, like a clock you forgot you had. You're not in your room anymore. You're somewhere gently distant, somewhere made of dust and sandals and clay walls that never quite keep the heat out. A modest city, half awake, stretching its limbs under the cover of history. You smell bread, smoke, sweat. You hear a cart's wooden wheel squeaking like it's complaining about the early hour. And yes, someone is already yelling about fish prices, loud enough for the next century to hear. Welcome to a day in the ancient world. Nothing dramatic. No famous generals or sparkling gold thrones just yet. Just life. One of the many days that weren't remembered, and somehow still matter. You probably won't make it through this day. That's okay. It's not going anywhere. If your eyes are already half closed, you're in the right place. But before you drift, maybe tap that like button with one sleepy finger. And if you feel like it, comment below with your location and the local time. We're all wandering through the past together, even if we're horizontal. Now let's ease into tonight's journey. You walk along the main road of a city you can't name, but your feet know it. You feel the gentle unevenness of the stones beneath your sandals. Stones worn down by so many feet before yours, it's like walking on softened memory. The buildings around you are made from sun-dried mud brick, some leaning slightly, like they've had a long week. Laundry flaps lazily overhead like forgotten prayers. Someone sneezes in Akkadian. Maybe. It's hard to say. The local dialect sounds like someone gargling history. You're in Mesopotamia, somewhere between the Tigris and the Euphrates. Yes, that Mesopotamia, the one from textbooks. But you're not here for the big dates and dusty maps. You're here because time forgot to shut the door and you wandered in. People pass you by without noticing. A man carrying 3 baskets too many, muttering under his breath about last week's barley harvest. A woman with henna-stained fingers, humming as she counts beads, likely for trade. You pass a scribe, young, frustrated, elbow deep in wet clay tablets, muttering something that sounds suspiciously like ancient profanity. He's trying to copy a law code, probably Hammurabi's. But maybe it's just a grocery list. Scholars still debate whether scribes actually understood everything they wrote down, or if they were just really good at pretending. The air is thick with the scent of animals, goats, oxen, and something that smells suspiciously like ambition, but might be donkey sweat. Either way, it's pungent. You duck into a shadowed alley. It's cooler here. You press your hand to the rough wall, warm, gritty, solid. Somewhere above, a child throws a date pit from a rooftop and misses your head by inches. Civilization at its finest. There's a temple nearby. You can feel it more than see it, tall, layered, ziggurat-shaped like a wedding cake no one ordered. Its steps rise above the city like a stack of promises to the gods. You hear faint chanting, rhythmic and slow, as if the priests are negotiating with the sky. Offerings are being made. Beer, bread, maybe a goat who didn't see it coming. Religion here is not a matter of belief. It's a matter of routine. Like brushing your teeth, if brushing your teeth meant possibly saving your crops. You find yourself near the market square. It's alive now, buzzing with negotiations, smells, and one very smug chicken. The traders speak in a flurry of languages, Sumerian, Akkadian, grunts, and hand signals that probably mean I'll throw in the basket if you stop haggling. One merchant offers you a necklace made of carved shells. He swears it's magical. It's not. But you smile politely. He smiles back with 4 teeth and hope. Another man offers dried fish wrapped in reeds. You decline gently. He curses gently. Peaceful commerce. A boy runs past you with a tablet, shouting something about an eclipse. The crowd barely reacts. Eclipses come and go. Life keeps walking. You pause at a shaded corner, where an old man is reciting the Epic of Gilgamesh for a few half-interested listeners. He embellishes the details. Gilgamesh is taller today. Utnapishtim's beard is longer. A sleepy donkey nearby is his most loyal audience. Stray detail of the day. In some towns, it was considered rude to eat figs without offering a bite to the nearest neighbor. Scholars aren't sure why. Possibly a superstition. Possibly just fig-based diplomacy. The sun climbs lazily overhead, turning the city's mud brick walls into soft ovens. You're sweating now, gently, like a simmering soup. Shade becomes a currency. You pay in footsteps, dodging dogs and philosophical beggars. You pause at a well. The pulley creaks like it has complaints. The water is cool, and you splash some on your face. A nearby girl giggles at your awkwardness. Children in every century remain unimpressed by adults pretending to be locals. You've been wandering now for hours, or maybe minutes. Time in ancient cities doesn't obey clocks. It obeys bells, shadows, and bread deliveries. Evening tiptoes in, soft and golden. The city begins to quiet. The priests chant slower now, voices blending with the first night birds. Fires flicker to life. Laughter wafts from a nearby courtyard. Someone drops a jug. Someone swears about it. The world keeps turning. You sit down on a stone ledge. Your body relaxes. The city breathes with you. You're not a visitor anymore. You're part of it. Somewhere a lullaby begins. And so does the night. Morning doesn't really arrive in this place. It leaks. Like tea from a cracked cup. First, the color changes. Then the sounds shift. Then the smells return, the bread, the sweat, the faint panic of another day that needs doing. You're awake again. Or maybe you never really left. You stretch slowly. A cat blinks at you from a wall. It doesn't care what year it is. It's already judged you. Today, you're following the river. Not for any grand reason. Just because it's there. The Tigris glints in the light, lazy and wide, like it has nothing to prove. A fisherman rows past, muttering a prayer to Enki, god of water, luck, and lost sandals. His boat is patched more with hope than with wood. You walk along the banks. Reeds rustle. Frogs argue somewhere unseen. A woman washes clothes on a flat rock, singing in a language that died before your grandparents were born. You don't understand it, but the melody feels like sunlight warming your ribs. And now comes your first major historical fact of the day. The Mesopotamians were probably the first to use writing for accounting, not poetry. That's right. Humanity's great leap toward civilization was basically a receipt for goats. Romantic, isn't it? You reach a small village, clustered like forgotten thoughts near the river. Children chase chickens. Adults chase time. A man is teaching his sons to make bricks by hand, mixing straw and mud, pressing it into wooden molds, drying them under the sun. You watch for a while. It's hypnotic. Brick, turn, brick, turn. It's the rhythm of civilization, soft, slow, and endlessly repeatable. They offer you water in a palm leaf cup. You accept. It tastes faintly of grass and generosity. You wander into a small courtyard where women are spinning wool. The spindle whirls, the thread pulls, the air hums with quiet effort. One of them smiles at you, points to your robe, and chuckles. It's crooked. Fashion advice, circa 2400 BCE. Lunch is barley flatbread with lentils and some kind of cheese that squeaks when you bite it. Everyone pretends it's delicious. No one is fooled. In the afternoon, you're invited to join a minor festival. Nothing elaborate. Just a celebration of some local deity whose name you promptly forget. There's drumming, slow dancing, and a man in an eagle mask who keeps tripping on his own feet. The crowd cheers anyway. History doesn't demand grace, just participation. Obscure tidbit for the day. Some Mesopotamians believed sleeping with onions under your pillow would ward off bad dreams. Scholars still debate whether it worked, or just gave people strange-smelling pillows. You sit under a fig tree as the sky turns a sleepy pink. An old woman tells you stories about a storm that never came, about a fox who learned to speak, about a time when stars fell like rain. Her voice is creaky like an old cupboard, but every word is gold. The village quiets again. The river gurgles softly. A flute plays somewhere, off-key and beautiful. You return to the city by twilight. The streets feel different now. Familiar. You pass the same bakery, still warm, still smelling like comfort. The same scribe is still there, still swearing at tablets. The gods are still chanting in the temple, still not answering directly. You pause at the steps of the ziggurat. You look up. You wonder. A shooting star streaks overhead. Someone nearby gasps. You do too, quietly. You've seen nothing extraordinary today. And yet, somehow everything. Sleep tugs at the edges of your mind now. Even the chickens have stopped gossiping. Another day is ending. Slowly. Like syrup sliding off a spoon. You find a quiet rooftop. You lie down. The stars blink above you. The city breathes below. And you rest, not because you're done, but because it's enough. For now. You wake slowly. The way old clay cracks in the sun. Quiet, with a sigh. The light is pale again, spilling gently across the rooftop where you fell asleep. Somewhere a rooster is being overly ambitious, trying to sing the sun into existence. You stretch. The kind of stretch that doesn't change the world, but reminds your body it still lives in one. Down below, the city is already moving. You can hear it, broom against stone, pots clanging awake, the distant voice of someone too excited about lentils. It's a day like the one before. But this is Mesopotamia, where even routine is sacred. If repetition built pyramids, it surely built this too. You descend the stairs slowly, careful not to trip on history. An elderly man greets you with a nod and no words. He smells like ashes and wisdom. You nod back. No translation needed. Today, you're headed to the city center. There's talk of a gathering, a council, or a court, or possibly just someone shouting creatively about taxes. As you pass the market, you recognize the fish seller from before. He nods. You nod. You're practically friends now, bonded by mutual avoidance of his product. The city square is alive with murmurs and dust. A clay platform rises in the middle, an early version of a stage, or maybe a soapbox with ambition. A few robed officials stand there, holding scrolls and looking like they regret everything. The scribe reads aloud the latest tax decree. His voice is monotone, but the crowd still groans. Apparently, the barley levy has increased by half a measure per household. You don't know what that means, but judging by the reactions, it's as bad as it sounds. A man near you mutters, "This is what happens when gods get hungry." You nod. It's a kind of phrase you could apply to nearly anything here. And here's your historical fact for the day. Mesopotamians had some of the earliest legal systems, including property rights, family law, and even court hearings. They invented bureaucracy long before it was cool or tolerable. Two men step forward to resolve a dispute. One claims the other stole his goat. The other insists the goat just wandered off. A third man appears, an alleged witness who seems far too invested in goat affairs. The judges confer. There is squinting. There is scribbling. There is a goat brought forward as evidence. It looks thoroughly unimpressed. Eventually, a verdict is announced. The goat shall be returned, and the accused must offer bread to the temple as penance. The goat receives no comment. There's a small cheer, or maybe just polite clapping. Justice, Mesopotamian style. You wander off, past the potter's quarter. Here, rows of clay vessels sunbathe like sleepy turtles. You watch one potter work, hands covered in earth, spinning mud into symmetry. He doesn't speak. He just nods at the wheel. You sit and watch. The wheel spins. The clay rises, wobbles, straightens. It's not exciting. It's something better, soothing. A young girl brings water. She grins at you, gap-toothed, and asks if you want to try. You hesitate, then agree. Your attempt is abstract. The potter chuckles. You've made something between a bowl and an insult. He keeps it anyway. Maybe for comedy. Obscure tidbit of a day. Some clay tablets show doodles in the margins, little drawings of animals, stars, or exaggerated faces. Even scribes needed to daydream. The afternoon thickens. You follow the curve of the street to a quieter part of the city. Homes here are slightly larger, the kind with interior courtyards and better sandals. You pass a school, a small, open-air space where young boys chant syllables under the stern eye of a teacher. They're learning cuneiform by copying lists, rivers, kings, words for donkey. The classics. One child sneaks you a smile. He's written his name upside down. It's charming, until the teacher sees it and launches into a lecture. You quietly slip away, hoping not to be drafted into grammar. You rest by a fig tree. Again. The same one. Its leaves wave at you like an old friend. A passing musician plays a lyre, soft and melancholy. The tune lingers in the dust behind him. You hum along, not knowing the notes, but feeling them anyway. The sun begins its descent. The light gets syrupy, thick and gold. You find a small food stall and accept a bowl of something hot and unfamiliar. It tastes of cumin and story. You eat slowly, because everything here is slow. And that's the point. Another day ends. The stars return like shy guests. You hear someone arguing with a cat. The cat wins. Naturally, you sleep under the fig tree this time. The bark is rough against your back. The night air hums with old songs. You dream of goats, justice, and pots that wobble into bowls. You awake to the sound of sweeping. Not wind, not whispers, just sweeping, an old broom brushing stone, like it's trying to erase yesterday. The fig tree above you rustles a little. You blink into the light. It's brighter today, more certain of itself. Someone hands you a flatbread as they pass by. No words, just breakfast and continuation. You munch quietly. It's stale in that comforting way. Today's plan? The canal. Mesopotamians loved canals. They built them like we build highways. For water, of course, but also for control, trade, and the occasional flood drama. You follow a worn path out of the city, where reeds grow tall and suspicious. Dragonflies hover like they're guarding secrets. You reach the canal as a boat glides past, narrow, packed with jars, and one very loud dog. The driver waves. You wave back. The dog ignores you. Celebrity behavior. The air smells green, wet, alive in a way the city never is. You sit near the water and listen. It burbles, gurgles, whispers. It tells stories you almost understand. Today's historical fact. Mesopotamian engineers built some of the earliest irrigation systems in the world. controlling floods and channeling water to dry fields. It was science, trial and error, lots of error. You walk along the canal, watching workers clear weeds with crew tools. One sings while hacking at stubborn growth. Another stares at you like he recognizes you from a dream. You nod, just in case. Further down, you find a field being irrigated. The water flows in careful channels, coaxed into obedience. Farmers shout instructions. Ducks ignore them. You sit on a rock. The sun is high now, warm but not cruel. A child offers you a reed whistle. It produces one note, loud and ridiculous. You thank him. He beams. You've made his morning. Obscure tidbit of the day. Some Mesopotamians believed canals had spirits, mischievous water beings who needed appeasing with songs or small offerings. Historians still debate whether this belief was genuine or a polite excuse for poor engineering. You nap by the water. A short one. You wake to a sheep sniffing your sandals. It backs away, unimpressed. In the afternoon, you visit a farmer's home. Mud walls. Reed roof. A goat inside because why not? The family welcomes you with food and laughter. You sit in the corner, watching a grandmother crush spices with a stone bowl. She does it like she's telling the past to behave. They offer you fermented date drink. It's strong, very strong. The world spins gently. You smile more than usual. Later, they share songs. Everyone sings. Even the goat bleats in rhythm. You join in humming nonsense. No one minds. You leave before sunset. The canal sparkles now, catching the sky's reflection like it's showing off. The city reappears in the distance, low, wide, familiar. As you walk back, you hear flutes. See lanterns being lit. Smell meat cooking over fire. You're tired in the best way. Used but not broken. Filled but not heavy. The stars peek out again. Always on cue. Like background actors in a cosmic play. You return to the fig tree. Of course. You lie down. The whistle still in your pocket. The night accepts you. Soft, silent, ancient. You drift. Like the canal. Like the days. Like the quiet pulse of a forgotten city. You wake with the vague sense that someone's already had 2 cups of something strong and is judging your sleep schedule. The sun is only just pulling itself over the city walls, stretching like a cat. Somewhere nearby, a child drops a clay cup. It shatters dramatically, and a grandmother immediately begins scolding in a tone that could melt stone. You sit up under the fig tree. A new fig has landed beside your head. Coincidence? Gift? Mild threat? You accept it, eat it, and start your slow morning shuffle through the waking city. Today, you're visiting the brickworks. The path there is familiar now, past the goats who seem more powerful than ever, past the bread stall where the seller gives you a knowing nod, past a man who always seems to be carrying a ladder, but never climbing it. The city has patterns. You're part of them now. The brickworks are louder than you expect. Slaps, splashes, grunts, the whistle of steam rising from drying mud. Dozens of men and women move in rhythm, mixing clay, stamping molds, stacking rows. It's not elegant, but it's effective. You're handed a brick. Still warm, heavy, damp around the edges. It smells like wet summer. This, you realize, is what cities are built on. Not glory, not conquest, just countless bricks and sore backs. Historical fact of the day. Ancient Mesopotamians didn't have a lot of stone. Most of their architecture was made from mud brick, sun-dried, or fired in kilns. That's why so few of their cities remain intact today. Time and rain are relentless editors. A kiln master waves you over. She's short, stern, with arms like woven rope. She shows you the process, how straw is mixed with mud to prevent cracking, how bricks are left to bake, how some are fired for special projects. You nod a lot. She narrows her eyes, hands you a trowel, and points at a fresh mold. You try. It looks okay. Slightly lopsided. The kiln master grunts in approval or resignation. Either way, she lets you live. Nearby, a few children are using leftover mud to make tiny figurines. Cows, people, oddly muscular lions. You join them. Yours ends up looking like a slightly confused hedgehog. It receives praise nonetheless. Time slips. Dust rises. You sit beside a half-built wall, watching silhouettes move against the haze. There's peace in repetition. Brick after brick. Day after day. Obscure tidbit for today. Archaeologists once found bricks stamped with the names of kings, proof that rulers wanted credit for infrastructure. One inscription allegedly translates to, "I King X built this. Please stop tearing it down." Whether this was civic pride or divine insecurity, no one's quite sure. You leave the brickworks by mid-afternoon, your clothes dusted with fine earth, your arms slightly sore. You smell faintly of history and sunburn. It's a good smell. You wander through the alleys, past carved lintels and quiet courtyards. A woman calls to you from a rooftop and tosses down a pomegranate. You catch it barely and bow. She laughs and disappears. The fruit is warm, ripe, generous. You eat it slowly, letting the juice run down your chin. Evening begins to drift in. The colors of the buildings shift, tan to gold, brown to honey, all softened by the angle of light. You find yourself at the edge of a city, near the fields. There's a donkey just standing there, doing nothing, staring at you with the gravity of a philosopher. You stare back. The two of you share a moment. Then it sneezes and walks away. The farmers are finishing their day. Tools are gathered. Water skins filled. There's quiet laughter, the kind that comes from being tired but satisfied. You lie in the grass. The stars emerge. Slowly, like they're unsure if they're needed tonight. Someone sings in the distance. A lullaby? A love song? A recipe with musical notes? You close your eyes, and the brick you made earlier passes through your dreams, floating, turning, resting beside the confused hedgehog. Another day, built and forgotten, just like all the others. You open your eyes to birds. Not songs, complaints. The kind of chirping that sounds like gossip mixed with urgent errands. The fig tree has dropped another offering. This time it hits your forehead. Message received. You sit up, stretch, yawn in a language no longer spoken. Today feels like a good day to visit the scribes again. The temple quarter is quiet this early, and you enjoy walking past it before the chants begin, when the statues still look like they're thinking, and the incense hasn't clouded the air. As you turn a corner, a group of women pass, carrying large jugs balanced on their heads. They walk like music, steady, practiced, unbothered by gravity. One glances at you, smirks, and adjusts her jug dramatically. You nearly trip on a pebble. The scribe house smells like clay and ink. And something else, mild despair, perhaps. The same young scribe from earlier is still there. Still copying. Still muttering. His stack of tablets is taller. His optimism is shorter. He waves you over. You sit beside him, and he shows you how to press the stylus into the clay. You try. Your lines are a bit enthusiastic. He nods politely. You've just written something that may or may not say flaming goat. Historical fact of the day: cuneiform, the writing system of Mesopotamia, is one of the earliest forms of written language. It began as pictographs and evolved into wedge-shaped marks. Entire libraries existed, on shelves, yes, but also just piles of tablets sorted by someone's best guess. You explore the shelves. Hundreds of tablets. Some on law, some on trade, some on star charts, some that just seem to be long lists of names. One appears to be a breakup letter. It ends with what looks like a drawing of a broken pot. Poetic. The head scribe, a woman with the posture of a thundercloud, gives you a lecture about preservation, about the importance of record keeping, about not leaving fingerprints on wet tablets. You apologize. She sighs and hands you a reed pen. Try this instead, she says. You spend an hour writing in sand. It's strangely satisfying. A boy next to you writes his name, then writes yours underneath, then draws a snake with legs. Art is universal. Obscure tidbit of the day. Some Mesopotamian tablets were filled with jokes, riddles, puns, even toilet humor. One of the oldest surviving jokes is essentially something that has never happened since time began. A young woman did not fart in her husband's lap. Ancient comedy. Timeless quality. You leave the scribe house, squinting into the light. Your hands are dusty. Your brain feels full. You pass a man offering palm readings. He grabs your hand, studies it, and tells you you'll live long but never own a boat. Fair enough. Lunch is roasted lentils with cucumber and flatbread. A dog sits nearby, staring with a patience that borders on religious. You toss it a piece. It disappears under a puff of fur and joy. The afternoon passes slowly. You find yourself watching shadow patterns on the wall of a bakery. The heat bakes the air. The world feels heavy, but not in a bad way. Just full. You nap beside a stack of unused tablets. You dream of writing, of dancing symbols and laughing scribes, of flaming goats. When you wake, the city is quieter again. Even the temple is just murmurs and flickering torches now. You pass by the ziggurat steps again. This time, you climb halfway. The view is dusty and magnificent. The city stretches, hums, waits for tomorrow. A priest passes you, nods once, then mutters about figs falling out of season. Apparently, your tree has a reputation. The morning doesn't arrive so much as exhale. A breeze slips past your ear like it's telling you a secret. The fig tree has dropped 3 offerings this time. Either it's becoming generous or passive-aggressive. You sit up, blinking at the pale sky and its cotton-soft clouds. The city is already rustling awake. Footsteps, clay doors creaking, the occasional very personal argument about goats echoing across rooftops. You stretch. You stand. You begin again. Today, you follow the sound of bells. They're small, metallic, inconsistent, tinkling ahead of you like breadcrumbs of sound. You pass narrow alleyways, vegetable carts, someone yelling at their own shadow. And then, there it is, a caravan just arriving through the city gate. Not the kind with wild animals and silk robes. This one's humble. Donkeys, traders, carts filled with dates and obsidian and something that might be dried lizard. The people look sun-worn, leathery, content. The bells hang from the donkeys' necks, swinging with every slow, dusty step. You fall in beside them. No one questions it. Travelers are used to strangers. The man leading the pack smiles through a face that's seen too many suns. He gestures to a small pile of goods and says something about trade, or possibly socks. Your Sumerian is rusty. Historical fact of the day: Mesopotamia wasn't isolated. Trade routes connected it to the Indus Valley, Anatolia, and Egypt. Lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, cedar from Lebanon, and tin from Iran passed through these city gates, carried by hands just like these. You follow the caravan to the trade quarter. It's alive with movement. Textiles, beads, spices, shouts. A boy offers you a cup of tamarind water. You sip. It's tart enough to startle your bones awake. You wander past booths. Here, a woman selling blue glass that glints like trap sky. There, a man offering perfume in little clay jars. You sniff one. It smells like crushed flowers and ambition. You buy it anyway. A minor crowd forms around a man juggling clay bowls while reciting genealogy. Son of the cousin of a goat who walked away. You're not sure if it's real, but it's mesmerizing. You follow a merchant into a small house where contracts are being signed. Clay tablets everywhere. A woman in a veil reads each aloud, calm as a moon. There's no shouting, only nods. Trust baked in clay. You sit outside and watch the dust settle. A child approaches and offers you a rock. It's shiny. It may be valuable, or just sentimental. You thank her, and she skips away like she owns the sun. Obscure tidbit of the day. Some Mesopotamian merchants used seal cylinders, tiny carved stones rolled across wet clay to leave unique signatures. Personal branding, 3000 BCE style. Some seals were shaped like ducks. Others were very anatomically creative. Historians remain divided. You visit a craftsman's stall next. He works with ivory and bone, carving delicate patterns into knife handles and combs. You ask how long it takes. He shrugs and says, longer than it should, shorter than it deserves. Midday heat arrives like a lazy emperor. The traders huddle in shade. The perfume you bought leaks slightly in your pouch. You smell like a floral garden in a thunderstorm. Lunch is flatbread again, but this time filled with pickled something. You don't ask questions. You chew with dignity. By late afternoon, the caravan begins to unpack for the night. Tents pop up like giant cloth mushrooms. Fires crackle. Stories are exchanged, not just about trade, but about lands where water glows blue, and a man once turned into a tree. You nod solemnly. The tree story seems believable. A musician plucks a harp with 7 strings. The tune is foreign and familiar at once. You hum. Someone else joins. The fire flickers in approval. You lie down beside a woven bag of dates. The trader from earlier tosses you a blanket. You smile. He nods, then snores. The city hums behind you. The stars lean closer. You sleep among travelers, wrapped in dust, scent, and soft murmurs of roads you'll never walk. The dawn light glows gold through canvas. You wake to the smell of boiled herbs and burnt millet. Around you, traders are stretching, yawning, packing. The city begins calling them inward, promises of coin, contracts, and coffee. Well, the Mesopotamian version of coffee. Bitter brews made from roasted roots that probably didn't win any taste awards. You help take down a tent. Or, at least you try. One stubborn knot bests you completely. A child laughs. You accept your defeat with dignity. Back within the city walls, the streets are full of movement again. This time, you're curious about the bathhouses. Yes, they had them. No, they weren't spas with cucumbers on eyes. But hygiene mattered, especially if you just spent the night wrapped in camel breath and cinnamon beans. You find one near the river's edge, a humble mud brick structure with steam curling through slatted windows. Inside, the air is warm and scented with reed oil. The bathers wear simple cloths. Water trickles from ceramic jugs, splashing into stone basins. A friendly woman hands you a scrubber made from woven reeds. You use it as instructed. It's rough, very rough. You leave the bathhouse with skin that feels freshly invented. Historical fact of the day. While Mesopotamia didn't have Roman-style aqueducts, it had private and public bathing areas, often near canals. Cleanliness had both spiritual and practical value. People even wrote spells to banish evil dirt. You walk out cleaner, lighter, glowing faintly like someone who's lost a layer of regret. You pass a group of elders seated in a shady courtyard. They're playing a board game, a grid of carved squares, marked stones moved with deliberate slowness. One notices you watching and waves you over. It's the royal game of You Are. Yes, that one. The original board game. equal parts chance, strategy, and sore losers. You sit, you play, you lose. Repeatedly. They laugh with surprising kindness. One of them gives you a small carved piece as a gift. To remember your defeat, he says with a grin. Obscure tidbit of the day. The royal game of UR wasn't just for fun. Some scholars believe it was tied to rituals of fate and divination. A roll of the dice wasn't just luck. It was the gods winking at you through numbered logic. By midday, the game dissolves into jokes and storytelling. One man tells a tale about a serpent that swallowed a king's ring and was then adopted as the royal pet. You raise an eyebrow. He raises too. Fair play. You wander through the artisan quarter again. This time, you're drawn to a music shop, if you can call it that. It's really a stall full of string things, flutes, and one instrument that looks suspiciously like a tortoise with ambitions. You pick up a lyre. The shopkeeper encourages you. Your notes are chaotic. A chicken walking past looks personally offended. Still, the music lingers in your fingers. You spend the afternoon watching a street performance, masked dancers moving in slow circles, telling the story of a flood and a hero who forgets his name. The crowd is hushed, reverent. A baby laughs anyway. Evening arrives in layers, light, then shadow, then smell. The scent of grilled onions fills the street. You eat with your hands, seated beside a man who swears he saw a star fall into the river once. It hissed, he says. You walk to the edge of the canal, where lamps have been placed every few meters. Their reflections shimmer like trembling gold. You dip your hand into the water. It's warm, real, alive. You sit there for a long time, listening to the city slowly settle like sand in a jar. A boat drifts past. A woman sings aboard it. Her voice floats like smoke. You walk back slowly, every step familiar, every corner humming with memories that don't quite belong to you anymore. The fig tree is waiting. Of course. You lie down beneath it. Stars. Again. But this time, they seem closer. Like they're listening. The wind stirs just enough to ruffle the top layer of dust from the window ledge as you lean into the silence. Morning in this new century, let's say around the 1500s, is slow to rise, like an old cat that stretches before deciding whether it even wants to bother. You wake in a small town tucked into the folds of Castile, still dreaming faint echoes of Isabel and Ferdinand's royal triumphs. But here in your wooden-framed room, the only royalty is a rather smug tabby curled on the hearth and a slightly off-kilter wooden cross above the door. Outside, the air smells like yesterday's ashes and bread. You hear footsteps in the alley, some barefoot, some clog-heavy, and at least one pair accompanied by the slosh of a jug that may or may not have survived the night intact. You stretch. Your knees sound like maracas. Welcome to a new day in Spain. The town square is alive by mid-morning, though alive is relative. A mule refuses to move. A boy is trying to sell spoiling oranges with an optimism that borders on delusion, and the local priest is muttering something under his breath that may be Latin, or possibly just complaints about his gout. The major historical fact you should know. In the early 1500s, Spain begins truly consolidating its power. Ferdinand has died. Charles I, soon to be Charles V of the Holy Roman Empire, is rising, and the empire is stretching out its arms, greedy, golden arms, across oceans. This is the moment the Spanish Empire begins its global climb. But here, in this quiet town, the ocean may as well be the moon. What matters more is who has grain for the week, whether the neighbors are still squabbling about goats, and if the butcher's daughter is still seeing that traveling lute player with questionable hygiene. You walk past a tavern that smells of old ale and fresh disappointment. Inside, a man is bragging loudly that his cousin's neighbor once shook hands with someone who saw the Queen. Another counters with the claim that his grandfather's sword was forged from the same steel as El Cid's. The crowd mumbles approvingly. No one believes it, but belief isn't really the point. There's a woman in the corner, weaving baskets, so deftly she doesn't even look at her hands. She wears a red sash and sings a tune with no words, only humming, like she's lulling the air into stillness. You stand for a moment, watching. She nods at you, not a greeting, but a knowing, as if to say, you probably won't make it through this day. But then again, none of us really do. Obscure cultural tidbit. At this time, many rural Spanish communities believed that if you swept a house after sunset, you were sweeping away your family's fortune. This means people spent entire evenings sidestepping crumbs like they were sacred coins. You step into a small shop selling fabrics, lace, and pins. The owner speaks rapidly, almost musically, about colors and patterns, each bolt of cloth described as if it has a soul. She hands you a scrap of deep green velvet and dares you not to fall in love. You lose that challenge almost instantly. Outside, a procession is forming, boys with bells, women in black veils, and a tired-looking statue of a saint being hoisted aloft by 8 men trying not to sneeze. You ask someone which saint it is. They shrug and say, one of the helpful ones. Historians still debate whether this particular era of Spanish expansion was driven more by religious fervor or sheer greed. Perhaps both. Perhaps neither. Perhaps they just really wanted to show off their shiny armor and found a moral excuse to do so. You pass a wall where someone scratched a message, La vida es corta, pero la siesta es sagrada. Life is short, but the nap is sacred. You consider lying down right there. Instead, you walk. The sun climbs. A man in a wide-brimmed hat tells a group of children about the new world across the sea. Tales of parrots with rainbow wings, trees that cry gold, and people who sleep standing up. He doesn't know any of it for sure, but that's never stopped a good story. By evening, the street's quiet again. Smoke curls from chimneys. Bread is broken. Someone plays a sad tune on a flute, and even the birds seem to pause to listen. You return home. The tabby is exactly where you left it, now dreaming about fish or revolution. You eat slowly, soaking bread in a broth that tastes like garlic and thyme. You stare into the flickering fire and wonder what it would feel like to stand at the edge of the Atlantic and truly believe the world ended at the horizon. You'll never know for sure, but for now, your feet are warm. The cross above the door tilts a little further, and outside, the wind picks up again, soft as breath. Sleep if you can. Tomorrow has opinions. You wake to silence. Not peace, just the kind of silence that feels like it's waiting. A storm? A death? A chicken in a hat? Hard to tell, honestly. Today you're traveling. Not far, just to a neighboring village where you've been told the market sells lemons the size of your fist and a particular kind of biscuit that crumbles into happiness. The morning light is filtered gold, slow and syrupy. You pack a satchel with 2 pieces of bread, a wedge of hard cheese, and a small wooden comb. You never know who you'll run into. You step out the door, ducking slightly so the cross doesn't clock you in the forehead again. The road is dry and cracked, lined with scruffy olive trees and thorny bushes that look like they'd sue you if they could. A cart passes, pulled by a mule with one eye and more attitude than royalty. The driver nods as he passes. Long road, he says. Longer memories. Halfway there, you pass a stone circle that people say was once used for witch trials. Or possibly harvest blessings. Or maybe laundry. No one agrees. One old woman insists it's where her husband proposed to her during a thunderstorm and then ran away when he saw lightning. You pause at a small chapel, one of those odd places that feels older than it should. The bell tower leans like it's listening. You sit on a stone step and eat your bread. Bees hover. A lizard darts by with no explanation. The major historical fact today. In the early 16th century, the Spanish Inquisition is in full swing. Its reach stretches across the land, often cloaked in mystery, fear, and deeply uncomfortable chairs. While not every town was touched by it directly, the shadow was long, and whispers traveled faster than light. You hear one of those whispers now, two farmers discussing a neighbor who asks too many questions and keeps books with strange diagrams. One laughs nervously. The other just spits into the dust. Obscure cultural tidbit. Some Spaniards at the time believed that yawning too much let demons in. So if you find yourself doing so now, maybe cover your mouth and think holy thoughts. Or embrace your demon. It might just want a nap. The village appears in the late afternoon, nestled like a tired secret in the hills. It's not grand, but it has a fountain that still runs, and a fig tree near the edge that's rumored to cure everything from heartbreak to stubbed toes. You reach the market. It's lively in that half-arguing, half-flirting kind of way. Sellers shout, kids chase chickens, and a man with a parrot on his shoulder is arguing about the price of soap. You try the lemon. It is, in fact, the size of your fist. You buy a biscuit from an old woman who blesses you as if you just returned from a war. There's a moment, near dusk, when everything slows. A breeze lifts the smell of fruit and sweat and soil. You sit under the fig tree and listen. Historians still debate whether the Inquisition was more feared than followed in rural Spain. Some say the people feared God. Others say they feared their neighbors more. You spend the night in a barn. The straw is itchy, the donkey is judgmental, and something small scurries in the rafters. But the stars peek in through a hole in the roof, and that's enough. As you drift to sleep, you think about those books with strange diagrams. You wonder who drew them, and what they were trying to remember. You close your eyes. The wind turns, the night folds in, and somewhere far away, a bell rings. Let yourself sink with it. There's still so much road ahead. There's a creak in the stone beneath your sandal. That same uneven corner, the same worn groove by the old well. You've stepped here before, maybe 10 chapters ago. But today it smells different, less of dust and more of roasted barley cakes. Someone nearby is burning breakfast again, and the morning air carries the faintest trace of mint or mouse. It's hard to tell, honestly. You pull your cloak a little tighter. The breeze is playful this morning, tugging gently at the edges of your sleeves, slipping under your robe like it knows something you don't. This is your cue. Another day in the slumberous saga of the city-state, where democracy means shouting with your friends, and history means someone will probably misquote you in 2,000 years. Today's topic is one of those that tends to sound fancier than it is. We're talking politics, but don't worry. It's ancient Greek politics, which means sandals, togas, and lots of arguing under the sun. You make your way toward the Knicks, that famous open-air meeting ground where Athenian citizens gather to discuss issues like war, taxes, and whether statues should be more muscular. The slope is steep, but your body is used to the walk now, your calves having quietly resigned themselves to the terrain. And when you arrive, the view is, well, it's not exactly majestic, but the sky is wide, and you can see the Acropolis watching from the distance like an annoyed older sibling. A man is already yelling, not angrily, just theatrically. It's part of the culture. Public speaking here is a little like performance art, with more hand-waving. The orator's voice bounces off the limestone walls, dramatic and nasal, as he proposes that the city reduce taxes on olive traders and increase them on goat hair imports. You lean on a rock and listen with half an ear. The debate isn't really about olives or goats, it's about status, alliances, and who insulted whose cousin during last year's festival. That's politics in a nutshell. A lifelong argument disguised as civic duty. Here's the major fact of the day. Athens is experimenting with something utterly radical. Democracy. Well, sort of. If you're a land-owning male citizen over 18 who isn't a slave or a foreigner, congratulations. You count. Everyone else, not so much. Scholars still debate whether this counts as true democracy, but it's definitely closer than most people manage for the next couple millennia. A woman walks past behind you, carefully carrying a woven basket full of onions. Her eyes meet yours for a second. No words exchanged, just a passing recognition that you both exist in the same sunlit moment. She's not allowed to speak at the assembly. She's not even allowed to stay and listen. But she knows exactly who's winning the debate. The assembly disperses after a few hours of impassioned gestures and carefully rehearsed complaints. Nothing is decided, which is entirely normal. You shuffle back toward the agora, the city square, to find something mildly edible and moderately priced. A baker sells you a rough loaf with visible chunks of sesame, and you sit by a column that smells like pigeon. You watch a boy juggle 3 apples with alarming skill. He's probably being punished. You're not sure how, but in Athens, physical labor and performance are often handed out as moral corrections. The boy's face is blank, determined, and a little smug. You're tempted to clap, but instead you nod, the universal sign for I'm silently impressed and moderately amused. Today's cultural tidbit comes in the form of a small shop you stumble into later, where a woman sells perfumed oils made from crushed myrtle, pine resin, and something she calls sleeping herb. She won't reveal what it is, but she says the Spartans used it before battles. You politely decline, imagining a Spartan warrior dabbing floral oils on his wrists before charging into war. Maybe history really is stranger then. As the sun dips low and the long shadows stretch across the paving stones, you begin the walk home. The path is familiar now. There's a gnarled tree with a broken pot wedged into its roots, the corner where cats gather like tiny judges, the fountain with the eternally dripping spout. You pass a street musician humming a tune with no melody. He plays a 4-stringed lyre and looks like he's been playing it for centuries. The music isn't beautiful, exactly, but it's consistent. It hums in your chest as you pass. Sleep tugs at your limbs like a child begging to be carried. But there's still a soft golden light in the sky, and the wind rustles the leaves with gentle insistence. You make it home just as the first star appears, sharp and curious above the rooftops. You sink onto your bedding, a thin layer of linen atop an indifferent wooden frame, and listen to the city exhale. Far off, the debate continues about war, about goats, about whether a statue's abs are historically accurate. But here, in your small corner of the ancient world, everything is quiet, except, of course, for the neighbor's rooster, who hasn't yet learned how time works. The morning arrives as it always does, uninvited and slightly too bright. You groan, or perhaps you just think about groaning, and that's enough effort for now. Outside your window, a modest rectangle more gap than glass, a chorus of sandals claps against the cobblestones. The city is already awake. Someone yells about figs, someone else laughs like a donkey in distress. Welcome to another day of almost momentous happenings. You stretch slowly. Your back makes a sound like a low drum roll. Somewhere in your body, a small bone quietly reminds you that you're not 16 anymore, and never will be again. It's comforting in a way. Predictable discomfort. You head out again, this time toward the Stoa. That long, shaded portico with its columns lined like weary soldiers. Philosophers gather here, leaning against pillars like overworked trees, debating questions nobody will answer for another 2,000 years. You find a spot on a bench that seems less cursed than the others and settle in. Someone nearby is reciting something about virtue. It could be Plato, or one of his students, or someone pretending to be his student. That happens a lot. The lecture today is about the soul. Specifically, whether it has parts, like a cake, or is a single entity, like a very moody cloud. The speaker gestures wildly at the air, and at one point, references the behavior of oxen during thunderstorms as proof of something. You nod thoughtfully, trying to appear as though you deeply understand. Internally, your thoughts drift toward lunch, and whether the olive seller has fresh ones today. Philosophy, after all, is best absorbed on a full stomach. And here it is, the historical nugget of the day. Socrates, who used to walk these very steps, possibly in poorly tied sandals, was tried and executed for corrupting the youth. His weapon? Questions. Relentless, inconvenient, philosophical questions. The kind that make you re-examine your beliefs while you're just trying to enjoy your lentils. People still argue over whether he deserved it. Historians, predictably, are split. A man walks by offering carved amulets shaped like turtles. He claims they guard against nightmares and bad soup. You buy one, not because you believe it works, but because the turtle looks vaguely disappointed in you, and you feel bad. After a while, you wander back through the agora. A woman is selling riddles for a single coin each. You trade a turtle coin for a riddle. She leans close and whispers, "What walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 legs in the afternoon, and 3 legs at night?" You tell her everyone knows this one. She shrugs and says, "Yes, but you didn't know I'd tell it wrong on purpose." You both laugh. There's a public bathhouse nearby, and you decide today is a good day for being slightly cleaner. The baths smell faintly of cedarwood and regrets. Inside, men lounge like sleepy dolphins, debating sports, poetry, and who insulted whom last Saturnalia. You soak in the lukewarm water, and let the day slide off your skin like a film of old wine. Someone begins to hum a tune, possibly the same tune from the Lyre Man last night, or maybe just a slow echo that drifted in from the hills. The bathhouse has no clocks, but your body tells you it's time to leave when your fingers wrinkle like thoughtful raisins. You dress slowly, listening to the faint clink of ladles and the sighs of the freshly scrubbed. Outside, the streets are golden again, sunlight bouncing from shutter to stone. You pass a girl drawing shapes in the dust with a stick. You recognize one shape. It's the symbol for the wind, or possibly for a goat. Ancient alphabets are tricky. You stop by the olive vendor. He does have fresh ones today, dark and shiny, firm but yielding. You buy a small pouch, and he throws in an extra one for luck, which is either generous or ominous. You chew thoughtfully as you walk back home. The olive pits clink in your pocket like tiny secrets. The streets begin to quiet. Dinner smells drift from doorways. Lentils, grilled fish, onions cook slowly until they're as sweet as stolen fruit. The moon is rising as you climb into bed. You turn the turtle amulet in your hand once before setting it beside your pillow. You wonder what Socrates would say about your day. Probably something irritatingly profound. But you're too sleepy to care. The wind presses gently against your shutter. A dog barks somewhere far off, and the stars blink down, bright, unblinking witnesses to everything and nothing. Certainly. Here's the continuation with, you're still standing in that courtyard, warm morning light slanting off the walls, but the shadows are already curling toward the corners. Time doesn't wait, even in history. Especially not in history. So you start to walk again, slow, deliberate, as if your sandals are unsure whether they want to join the rest of the day. The stone streets beneath you are worn down into smooth dips, centuries of foot traffic turning sharp corners into soft slopes. You imagine the thousands of feet before yours, farmers, priests, the occasional runaway goat, grinding the world into memory with each plodding step. A rooster shrieks from somewhere nearby, late and angry about it, and a pair of kids rush by with baskets balanced on their heads. They're barefoot, fast and perfectly balanced, which feels unfair. You wobble just watching them. You're heading toward the edge of the old market, where smells, sounds, and colors swirl together like some kind of sleepy festival that hasn't figured out what it's celebrating yet. Pots clang. Someone's shouting about cabbages. Someone else is arguing with a goat. Honestly, the market itself is carved from wood and woven cloth, little stalls under crooked canopies sagging from the weight of time and too many onions. There's a woman selling dried figs with fingers like twigs and a permanent squint that could cut glass. She hands you one. It's chewy, possibly eternal, but oddly comforting. You hear music in the distance, a reed flute, a beat from a hollow drum, lazy as a river in late summer. And it hits you. This is what cities sounded like before electricity, before the hum of neon, before traffic decided to soundtrack civilization with honks and curses. Your nose catches something new. No, not the figs, something sharp, metallic. The faint tang of blood and fire. You're getting close to the blacksmith quarter. Time to meet the makers of swords and spoons. The blacksmiths here are broad-shouldered and blackened with soot, and they treat glowing metal like it's an insult that needs to be hammered into submission. You watch one of them fold a blade, pounding rhythmically, sweat dripping from his brow, his foot tapping the forge bellows in a slow, unconscious dance. One fact sticks in your mind, glowing faintly like the blade on his anvil. Iron was once worth more than gold. In ancient civilizations, iron wasn't just rare, it was magic. People thought it fell from the sky. And, technically, some of it did. Meteoric iron, forged in stars, used for daggers, worn by kings. Still, most of the smiths here just make horseshoes, or hinges, or, on a lucky day, a well-balanced pan. Because no one lives in history textbooks. They live in chores. There's an apprentice trying to lift a too heavy hammer and pretending he isn't crying. You look away, politely. The master doesn't. Instead, he leans over and says something the boy will probably remember for the rest of his life. Something like, if the metal is stubborn, heat it more. If your arms are weak, grow stronger. Or maybe it was, quit whining. Historians still debate that part. Past the smiths, you stroll into a quiet alley where everything suddenly smells of ink and damp parchment. You've arrived at the scribe's quarter. These are the people who write down what other people do, and then make it sound more important than it really was. Ahem. The scribes sit cross-legged, bent like wilted reeds, muttering to themselves as they copy the same line of text for the 5th time, because their last ink blot looked like a squid attack. You peer over one shoulder. It's a love letter, sort of. Half poetry, half property negotiation. Romance is complicated in most centuries. You reach out and run your fingers across a roll of papyrus. It's rough, fibrous, but carries the scent of pressed reeds and sun, like the memory of a lake that got turned into literature. A scholar is snoring softly in the corner, open scroll on his lap, ink on his fingers, dreams in ancient grammar. You wonder if he's dreaming in his native tongue or in Latin, or maybe in silence, which honestly sounds like the better option. You take a seat on a worn stone bench, letting the weight of the morning settle into your bones like silt in a river. A jug of water rests nearby, sweating gently. You drink. It tastes dusty and cold. Somehow, that's exactly what you needed. The alley leads you to a bathhouse, not yet opened, but close. Warm steam curls from behind closed doors. It smells of lavender and skin. A woman is sweeping the threshold with a broom made from reeds, humming the same note over and over as though calling the day to attention. You pause there for a moment. Because why not? You've been walking for 2,000 years or so, depending on how you count. As you wait, a man passes you with a bundle of scrolls tucked under one arm and a turtle under the other. You don't ask. You've learned by now, context is a luxury. You lean back against the sun-warmed wall and let your mind drift. The city hums around you, not the electric buzz of now, but the murmur of footfalls, laughter, a distant argument over bread prices, the creak of a loaded cart, a child yelling no at a chicken. You think about how even here, even in this lost world of fig sellers and scroll-snoring scholars, people still wake up tired. They still squint at the sun and wonder what's for dinner. They still love, lie, stretch, scratch, and forget what they came outside for. We like to believe we're modern, advanced, somehow different. But really, we're just today's version of them. A little taller maybe. Worse at patience. Much better at complaining about Wi-Fi. And before you know it, you're walking again, past a stone fountain with green water and one extremely smug pigeon, past a vendor selling glass beads and questionable fortune readings, past a man yelling at clouds like he knows them personally. You cross a small bridge over a slow, green canal and spot a cat sleeping on the back of a sleeping dog. You'd stop to admire it, but you've reached the temple steps now, broad, imposing, and unnecessarily dramatic. You climb them anyway. Inside, the air is cool and thick, like stepping into a cave made of incense and silence. Carvings line the walls, gods with extra arms, animals with human eyes, symbols no one remembers how to read. A priest walks past you without making a sound, somehow noiseless despite the ornate sandals. You wonder if they train for that, or if temple floors just swallow footsteps out of respect. You light a small lamp because it feels like the thing to do. The flame flickers, tiny and unsure, like a toddler at a talent show. But it burns. You sit for a while, just breathing. The temple walls don't echo. They absorb. Your thoughts dissolve like sugar in tea. Outside, the city keeps moving. Carts clattering, merchants shouting, water trickling down tiled drains, pigeons arguing like little sky lawyers. But here, for now, it's just you. You and the flame. You and the stillness. And maybe that's the weirdest thing about history. Not the empires. Not the wars. But that every single person who lived it had moments like this. Quiet, small, soft. Unwritten. You'll probably forget this day. But somewhere, maybe in a half-cracked scroll or the crooked memory of a stone wall, it's already been remembered. Now rest a moment. Stretch your legs. Loosen your shoulders. We still have a long way to go. And you probably won't make it through this next day either. Ready? Then let's keep walking, slowly, sleepily, just past the turn of the page. The market itself is carved from wood and woven cloth, little stalls under crooked canopies, sagging from the weight of time and too many onions. There's a woman selling dried figs with fingers like twigs and a permanent squint that could cut glass. She hands you one. It's chewy, possibly eternal, but oddly comforting. You hear music in the distance, a reed flute, a beat from a hollow drum, lazy as a river in late summer. And it hits you. This is what cities sounded like before electricity, before the hum of neon, before traffic decided to soundtrack civilization with honks and curses. Your nose catches something new. No, not the figs, something sharp, metallic. The faint tang of blood and fire. You're getting close to the blacksmith quarter. Time to meet the makers of swords and spoons. The blacksmiths here are broad-shouldered and blackened with soot, and they treat glowing metal like it's an insult that needs to be hammered into submission. You watch one of them fold a blade, pounding rhythmically, sweat dripping from his brow, his foot tapping the forge bellows in a slow, unconscious dance. One fact sticks in your mind. glowing faintly like the blade on his anvil. Iron was once worth more than gold. In ancient civilizations, iron wasn't just rare, it was magic. People thought it fell from the sky. And technically, some of it did. Meteoric iron, forged in stars, used for daggers, worn by kings. Still, most of the smiths here just make horseshoes, or hinges, or, on a lucky day, a well-balanced pan. Because no one lives in history textbooks. They live in chores. There's an apprentice trying to lift a too-heavy hammer and pretending he isn't crying. You look away, politely. The master doesn't. Instead, he leans over and says something the boy will probably remember for the rest of his life. Something like, if the metal is stubborn, heat it more. If your arms are weak, grow stronger. Or maybe it was, quit whining. Historians still debate that part. Past the smiths, you stroll into a quiet alley where everything suddenly smells of ink and damp parchment. You've arrived at the scribe's quarter. These are the people who write down what other people do, and then make it sound more important than it really was. Ahem. The scribes sit cross-legged, bent like wilted reeds, muttering to themselves as they copy the same line of text for the 5th time, because their last ink blot looked like a squid attack. You peer over one shoulder. It's a love letter. Sort of. Half poetry, half property negotiation. Romance is complicated in most centuries. You reach out and run your fingers across a roll of papyrus. It's rough, fibrous, but carries the scent of pressed reeds and sun, like the memory of a lake that got turned into literature. A scholar is snoring softly in the corner, open scroll on his lap, ink on his fingers, dreams in ancient grammar. You wonder if he's dreaming in his native tongue or in Latin, or maybe in silence, which honestly sounds like the better option. You take a seat on a worn stone bench, letting the weight of the morning settle into your bones like silt in a river. A jug of water rests nearby, sweating gently. You drink. It tastes dusty and cold. Somehow, that's exactly what you needed. The alley leads you to a bathhouse, not yet opened, but close. Warm steam curls from behind closed doors. It smells of lavender and skin. A woman is sweeping the threshold with a broom made from reeds, humming the same note over and over as though calling the day to attention. You pause there for a moment. Because why not? You've been walking for 2,000 years or so, depending on how you count. As you wait, a man passes you with a bundle of scrolls tucked under one arm and a turtle under the other. You don't ask. You've learned by now, context is a luxury. You lean back against the sun-warmed wall and let your mind drift. The city hums around you, not the electric buzz of now, but the murmur of footfalls, laughter, a distant argument over bread prices, the creak of a loaded cart, a child yelling no at a chicken. You think about how even here, even in this lost world of fig sellers and scroll-snoring scholars, people still wake up tired. They still squint at the sun and wonder what's for dinner. They still love, lie, stretch, scratch, and forget what they came outside for. We like to believe we're modern, advanced, somehow different. But really, we're just today's version of them. A little taller maybe. Worse at patience. Much better at complaining about Wi-Fi. And before you know it, you're walking again, past a stone fountain with green water and one extremely smug pigeon, past a vendor selling glass beads and questionable fortune readings, past a man yelling at clouds like he knows them personally. You cross a small bridge over a slow, green canal and spot a cat sleeping on the back of a sleeping dog. You'd stop to admire it, but you've reached the temple steps now, broad, imposing, and unnecessarily dramatic. You climb them anyway. Inside, the air is cool and thick, like stepping into a cave made of incense and silence. Carvings line the walls, gods with extra arms, animals with human eyes, symbols no one remembers how to read. A priest walks past you without making a sound, somehow noiseless despite the ornate sandals. You wonder if they train for that, or if temple floors just swallow footsteps out of respect. You light a small lamp because it feels like the thing to do. The flame flickers, tiny and unsure, like a toddler at a talent show. But it burns. You sit for a while, just breathing. The temple walls don't echo. They absorb. Your thoughts dissolve like sugar in tea. Outside, the city keeps moving. Carts clattering, merchants shouting, water trickling down tiled drains, pigeons arguing like little sky lawyers. But here, for now, it's just you. You and the flame. You and the stillness. And maybe that's the weirdest thing about history. Not the empires, not the wars, but that every single person who lived it had moments like this. Quiet, small, soft, unwritten. You'll probably forget this day. But somewhere, maybe in a half-cracked scroll or the crooked memory of a stone wall, it's already been remembered. Now rest a moment. Stretch your legs. Loosen your shoulders. We still have a long way to go. And you probably won't make it through this next day either. Ready? Then let's keep walking slowly, sleepily, just past the turn of the page. You wake to the clinking of hooves on cobblestones. Or at least, it's a noise like that, soft, rhythmic, layered over a dozen similar sounds from just outside your wooden-shuttered window. It's early morning now, but not modern early. No glowing rectangles or espresso machines. No app to snooze. Just birds that don't understand your feelings, a rooster with no sense of volume, and that dreadful awareness of hay in your nose. You pull on your tunic, or whatever people call it here, too many laces, always mildly itchy, and you step out into the world again. The stone under your feet is already warming in the sun, and the faint scent of yesterday's cooked onions lingers around the square. If that sounds romantic, remember, onions were basically a lifestyle back then. Today you are in a small medieval town, somewhere in Western Europe. The name is irrelevant, mostly because nobody agrees on how it's spelled yet. Maps are hand-drawn. Literacy is rare, and even the mayor, should he be called that, signs his name with a kind of nervous loop. But don't judge. You once called your password 123. The year is approximately 1237. That's not carved in stone, but let's just say you won't be calling for pizza anytime soon. This morning, like most, the town is humming with activity. Not loud, but busy in a layered way. The creaking of carts, the murmured prayers of a monk with sleep in his eyes, the slosh of milk in a wooden bucket. You pass a woman selling eels from a basket. One of them looks at you with what feels like a challenge. You do not return its gaze. Your destination is the Guildhall. Not because you're a member, of course, you're just a bystander here, but because it's the loudest building on the block. A crowd is gathered, voices rising in excitement. You ease into the group like a leaf drifting into a river, slow, mostly unnoticed, but thoroughly in the flow. Inside, something big is happening. A craftsman named Bertrand is laying out a velvet cloth, revealing a strange and wonderful object, a mechanical clock. That's your historical fact for the day. In the early 13th century, mechanical clocks began to emerge in European towns. Not wristwatches. These were heavy, noisy, mostly inaccurate things, often powered by weights and gravity. They were meant to chime the hour for monks to pray, not for you to know if you're late for brunch. But still, it's a revolution. Before now, time was judged by bells, sun positions, or sheer vibes. The townspeople murmur as Bertrand turns a crank. The gears whir to life. Metal teeth engage with groaning resistance. A bell chimes with a hollow dignity. It's not perfect. It's barely precise. But it's the beginning of something enormous. Imagine controlling time itself, or at least pretending to. You stand there, feeling the shift. For the first time, time itself feels like a shared experience, a public rhythm. Not just the sun and the moon, but something measured and marked. A structure. A cage, maybe, but a cage with a very satisfying tick. Later, you pass a weaver's stall. She's humming something tuneless, rhythmically threading wool dyed with woad, a plant that stains your fingers blue for days. And yes, you do touch it, and yes, you do immediately regret it. She tells you, with absolute certainty, that the stars influence thread quality. Historians still debate whether people really believe this, or just said it to justify bad sewing. Either way, she's convinced. Jupiter is angry this week, and her warp threads are sulking. And you just nod. That's what you do now. You nod, you listen, you drift through centuries like a polite ghost. You observe the human habit of explaining everything with something unknowable. Stars, gods, neighbors. Modern people aren't so different. You've blamed Mercury for your bad texts. The sun arcs overhead. The bell tolls again an hour later, give or take, and the air grows warmer, thicker. You rest near the fountain. The town's main water source is a mossy basin carved from a single slab of stone. It smells like wet pennies and hope. Children splash each other with cupped hands. A dog tries to drink, but mostly ends up snorting. You watch a boy carve a small knight out of wood. His hands are quick, practiced. He gives it 2 legs, then breaks one off, then shrugs. You can't help but admire the realism. Someone sings a song in Occitan nearby, a language that once dominated the troubadour courts of southern France. Soft vowels, winding melodies, mostly about longing and horses. Or longing on horses. It's hard to tell. But it's beautiful. And the tune stays with you like dust in your hair. Toward evening, you catch a whiff of something peculiar. Lavender and boiled turnips. A strange mix, but not the weirdest of the day. That honor goes to the local tradition of beetle weddings, where village children make tiny wagons for large beetles and parade them in pairs. Nobody remembers why. Nobody really wants to. But it happens, and you clap politely. You find shelter in a small guest house tonight. It's nothing fancy, a straw mattress, wooden beams, and a candle stub that smokes like it's tired of existing. You lie back, and the sounds of the village ease into quiet. A baby wails once, then not again. Someone coughs like a curse. But mostly it's peaceful. You've survived another day in a place where clocks are louder than kings, where beetles get married, and where time has only just learned how to walk in a straight line. Tomorrow, you'll leave this town. But tonight, you rest here, listening to a world gently turning gears in the dark. And no, you probably still won't make it through the day. Your boots are damp. That's the first thing you notice as you step out into the misty morning of a port town hugging the edge of the North Sea. It's colder here, salter too. Everything smells like wet rope, boiled fish, and quiet ambition. You tighten your cloak, pretending it helps, and trudge forward through streets slick with last night's fog. You're in Lubeck now, or Bruges, or maybe even Bergen. It honestly depends on which merchant you ask and how many languages you understand. This is the Hanseatic League territory, and you've wandered into the heart of medieval trade without so much as a ledger. The docks are alive. Men and women shout in Low German, Dutch, and something that might be Danish if you squint. Crates are stacked higher than your comfort zone. Fish spill from baskets in glistening slaps. The gulls scream in union protest. And everything is wrapped in wool, because if you can't wear it, you can sell it. That's today's major historical moment, the rise of the Hanseatic League, a powerful economic network of merchant cities across Northern Europe, stretching from London to Novgorod. Not quite an empire, not quite a club, but something in between. Imagine Costco, but with boats and also the occasional armed convoy. The League didn't conquer by sword, it conquered with shipping schedules. You follow a cart into the central market square, where everyone seems mildly disappointed in each other. That's just the baseline expression here. These are serious traders, used to arguing over cinnamon prices and herring taxation. You spot a scale that looks suspiciously light and a barrel labeled, wine that smells like vinegar and regret. A woman sells amber jewelry nearby, her fingers stained golden from polishing. She tells you her beads carry protection against toothaches. You nod. 2 stalls over. A man insists his dried cod can last 10 years in a cellar. You believe him, mostly because it smells like it already has. A merchant waves you over. He's selling beeswax and cheese from Lubeck. You smile, trying not to gag at the combo. He explains, unprompted, that his family has been trading wax for 3 generations, and that his uncle once saw a ghost ship full of burning bread. You don't ask follow-up questions. Some mysteries should stay at sea. Around midday, the town crier announces a new toll on foreign merchants. There's groaning, yes, but also applause. It's theater here. Politics are performed in the streets, with shouting matches as the soundtrack and parchment as props. You get the sense that everyone is slightly cheating everyone else, but with dignity. You stop at a tavern for a bowl of something called eel stew. You eat around the eel. A man nearby tells a long joke involving a goose, a bishop, and 3 barrels of butter. You don't get it. Neither does he. But he laughs anyway. And now your obscure fact of the day. In some Hanseatic cities, there were laws against baking bread at night, supposedly to prevent fire, but also, perhaps, to discourage witches. Historians still debate whether this rule was about safety or superstition, or just a cranky neighbor who didn't like midnight muffins. The fog begins to roll in again, as if the sky is trying to remember something important. The sails at the harbor flap with a lazy rhythm. Somewhere, a ship departs for Novgorod, loaded with salt and fur. Somewhere else, a rat decides your boot is a worthy adversary. You wander past warehouses built like stone fortresses, thick walls, iron bars, doors that look like they've heard secrets. You touch one. It's cold, like history itself. Night falls slowly, stretching shadows into brushstrokes across the street. Lanterns flicker to life. Someone plays a mournful tune on a hurdy-gurdy, and you pretend it's not stuck in your head already. You curl up on a borrowed straw mat in a shipping loft. The smell of dried herbs and tar surround you. Below, the sea breathes against the docks, a slow, tidal sigh. The kind that lulls even the most restless travelers into dreams. Tonight, you sleep among sailors and rats and contracts written in 4 languages. Tomorrow, the world will shift again. But for now, let the fog keep its secrets. You're just a quiet traveler, drifting between centuries on borrowed time.